Welcome back to my podcast. This is an addition to the last one, the last podcast, episode 8, when I was on the E.W. Thornton doing bell bounce diving. I thought I'd do an additional little podcast just explaining what bell bounce diving is. I'm not sure if it's still used today, but at that period it was used a lot. So in E.W. Thornton we had a living chamber, we had our bell. The bell had gas on the outside, a standby gas, but it was fed on a trimix, that's oxygen, nitrogen and helium from the surface through an umbilical. The bell would go down on 2 guide wires with a clump weight at the bottom. So we'd lower the clump weight down to whatever depth we're at, and then we'd lower the bell down. The reason for that, just this guide wires and clump weight stop the bell swinging around. Remember, we've been doing a lot of exercises when we're not really doing working diving. So I was familiar with the bell, I was familiar with the procedure, and it is a procedure. You get your kit together, helmets, umbilicals, etc. are all inside the bell already. They're all ready to go. We are told what the work is, we assess the work, we talk with the drill people to find out exactly what they require. But this is also to make sure we have the tools with us to do the job. So these are the 2 things. We will then go on the bell, on the surface, and we will run through procedures, checks, with the supervisor on the surface. So my first dive, I was in there, we had to go down and do some small alterations to the BOP. Little video as well. Myself and another diver, we both get in the bell. Remember, the bell's on the surface, it's got a massive lift wire and umbilical. So we're there and we're running through the checks, and these checks are all about communication, gas. We carry bailout bottles, whether they're charged at right pressure, etc. Whether you've got all the right equipment, you've got scrubbers inside, and you've got a lot of emergency equipment as well. It's a very small bell. This was the 80s. Nowadays you have 3-man bells and they're pretty big, and the umbilicals are on the outside. These were on the inside, so it was pretty cramped. Run through the procedures, check, all good. We will then close the bottom door, close the inner door. So you've got 2 doors. What you have is like a sphere, a small trunking, door that locks inside and a door that locks outside with a small space in the trunking. We're all ready to go. We're breathing air inside and they're flushing this, and we've got scrubbers. So there's no issue about getting carbon dioxide build-up. Eventually it's brought across, the clump's lowered, and the bells are lowered at the same time. Remember, it's atmospheric pressure inside. As soon as it leaves surface, the outer door seals, and we can start to open the inner door and prepare for the dive. All these dives have to be done pretty quickly. They're normally stopping or restricting drilling, and the sooner we fix it, the better. So we're on our way down. At standard procedure is that I'm in overalls. I've got my harness on, I've got my bailout bottle, sitting with my feet in the trunk. Remember, the inner door is now open and the outside door is sealed, because the deeper we go, the more pressure goes against it. As we're lowering further and further down, again, we're prepping. I'm starting to put my mask on. I've got my tools if I need them. I've got my feet on the bottom door with the lugs undone. So when we hit the bottom, we want to equalize the pressure inside the bell with the pressure outside. So that bottom door drops open and you end up with a little moon pool, that area between what's inside the bell and the sea. As soon as we hit that, we get blown down, with the reference of blowing down. So trimix is blown into the bell. It's incredibly loud. So I'm sitting there with my helmet ready to go. It also gets very warm, very, very warm, because this is high pressure gas coming in. So I'm sitting there, I'm ready to go. As soon as I see the bell door open, remember I've got all my kit on, I'm ready to go. I'm out, I drop out, straight out. I tended to grab hold of one of the guide wires for a few minutes, because the first time I was quite disorientated. There's a lot of noise, a lot of heat, and you're suddenly into a cooler water. So it's a bit of a shock all round. From there, straight across to the BOP, and we start to do whatever work. And as soon as I'm finished and they've done their test, I'm straight back to the bell again. Now the guy inside's tending my umbilical, giving me more umbilical, and as I come back, he's pulling the umbilical in. I get up into the trunking. We immediately leave bottom. That means we're going to pull the bell up to its first stop. Now, as we start pulling the bell up, obviously, pressure inside is greater than outside. So as you go up, you get this gas or flowing out the bottom of the trunking. So you get this sort of blubbing noise that gets rid of the excess pressure inside. So we get up to our first stop. I get my kit off. We start to prepare for the next stop. So there's normally 2 stops in the water, but sometimes only be 1, depending what depth we're working at. Get your kit off, get prepared to lock on to the chamber. So if we do a second stop, normally 15-20 minutes, before we leave that stop, we will close the bottom door and we will close the inner door. And then they will just start to bring the bell up. And obviously, the pressure inside the bell will push down in the inner door and it will seal. So we're now at about 60 feet or so, which is normally the pressure we'd want to lock on at and be able to start breathing pure O2. Bell's brought up, it's brought across, and it locks on to the top of the living chamber. When I say living chamber, it's pretty small. So that locks on with clamps. So you have 2 seals, if you can imagine this trunking, with a door to one side, and on top, you've got basically the same situation on the chamber. They bring the seals down, and there's hydraulic clamps that bring that and lock it in there together. Now at this point we need to blow gas into the chamber. So we end up with a position where the bell and the chamber are at the same pressure. Therefore we should be able to open up the inner door and open up the inner door of the chamber. So we're all at the same pressure. We'll leave all our wet kit in the bell and we transfer through. When we get in, we lock the door, we lock the inner door of the chamber. The guys outside will start to release pressure in the bell itself. And that way we will, because there'll then be higher pressure in the chamber, it'll seal that. And as soon as that, we can start to remove the bell and put the additional door back on. These are all very, very standard procedures that are probably still used today. The difference between saturation and bell bounce is you do not have much time in bell bounce. In saturation, you're already at the pressure. You're not going to come up for days and days and days. So the only decompression or compression, decompression you do there is really when you first go into the chamber and go into so many days later when you actually come out of the chamber. These are the only 2. But bell bounce is very rapid. I don't think it's particularly healthy. Nobody thought about this at that particular time. Once you're in the dry chamber, there's normally towels in there, some juice or water. We immediately go on O2, breathing O2 through a mask. I can't remember, it used to be 30 minutes or an hour and 5-minute break. I can't remember, to be honest, but it seemed like a long time on O2. In between these air breaks, we would get something to eat. So they have like smaller hatches where they can put in food, whatever. So they open up the hatch and outside, put the food in, they close the hatch, they pressurize it to the same as the living chamber. We can then open the door and take it. My love was peanut butter crackers with jam. I just loved them. And I would ask for a small tray of them to be brought in. And when the 5-minute break came, I was stuffing them in my mouth as much as possible. You were anywhere, depending on depth and time, etc. The longest I think I did in the chamber is about 4 hours. And you spend most of that on O2. But you can read a book, whatever. But it seems like a long time. And after that, I did quite a lot of this. And went to North Sea, we did a lot of surface decompression. And I'll explain that. I think I told you about it initially, but generally it's not a great thing to be doing. I did quite a lot of it, and a lot of divers in that 70s, 80s, 90s, they did a lot of this. That was just a little addition. When I actually finished episode 8 there, I thought, I haven't actually told anybody what the type of diving we're doing. So I hope you found this particularly interesting. The next episode coming is when I get my first saturation dive on a vessel called, would you believe, the Yuyu, a Japanese diving support vessel. So this is episode 9. and it's on its way. You guys take care. All the best.